When Israel recently attacked Iranian territory, Iran's government and officials initially didn't react strongly, giving the impression that the cycle of confrontations might be coming to an end. However, in the last 2 days, statements from Iranian generals have suggested that Iran is planning an unprecedented response to attack Israel. Rumors even say that Iran might choose to respond from outside its own borders, possibly using Iraqi territory to avoid direct Israeli retaliation on Iranian soil. We've looked at reports from a number of news outlets to give you an idea of what's going on. Before getting into the specifics of Iran's planned response, we will first talk about the historical background of the ongoing tensions between Israel and Iran. As the world is clearly better with peace than with war, we stay hopeful that peace will ultimately prevail and prevent further escalation. Let's begin. Israeli attack on the Iranian embassy building in Damascus on April 1, 2024, was a major step up in the war between Israel and Iran because it was aimed at Iran's military and diplomatic presence in Syria. According to reports, this airstrike destroyed the consular annex building next to the Iranian embassy and killed 16 people, including Brigadier General Mohammad Reza Shah, who was in charge of coordinating Iranian military operations in Syria. Syria and Gaza. The attack also killed other important IRGCC members, including Saadi, who was in charge of dividing the Palestinians, and Abdul Raza Shalai, who was in charge of IRGCC actions in Yemen. This operation severely limited Iran's ability to control the region and its military leaders in Syria. In late 2023, Israel increased its strikes in Syria, switching from its usual strategy of going after armed shipments to going after key Iranian personnel and infrastructure. The attack came after increased Israeli vigilance and action against what it sees as imminent threats from Iranian-aligned groups in Syria. For analysts, this change in strategy, which they call Israel raising the stakes, shows that the country's policy is changing to limit Iran's influence near its borders by going after top Iranian leaders who directly support Hezbollah and other proxy forces. Following this high-profile attack, Iran has promised to respond, indicating that attacks on high-level military officials and diplomatic places could lead to bigger fights or stronger proxy wars. Military action. In addition, the strike has shown where Iran's military in reaction to the embassy strike, Israeli intelligence pinpointed high-level meetings at the consulate. This accuracy raises the possibility of intelligence leaks and shows the danger Iran faces in continuing major military operations inside Syria's borders. Although Israel's advanced Iron Dome system stopped many of the missiles, Iran launched a coordinated missile and drone attack on Israel on April 14. The attack was aimed at both civilian and military targets in Israel and the Israeli-occupied Golan Heights. It used support from Iran-aligned militias like Hezbollah in Lebanon and the Houthis in Yemen. Iranian allies were able to put pressure on Israel from various directions during the attack. After the attacks on the embassy, Israel called them a major escalation, while Iran said they were in response to Israel's repeated airstrikes against Iranian positions in Syria. This confrontation made Israelis want a bigger military response, even though Western countries told them to be calm to avoid a bigger conflict in the region. Let's take a moment to talk about this. Please help us grow by clicking the like button and leaving your thoughts and feedback in the comments. Thank you. Days after Iran launched its missile attack, Israel launched its own counterattack on April 19, hitting Iranian targets inside Iran. The strike specifically targeted facilities related to Iran's air defenses, including parts of an S-300 air defense system, which was a key part of Iran's missile defense infrastructure. This was seen as a direct challenge to Iran's strategic capabilities and was one of the few times Israel has taken open military action on Iranian soil. It showed that Israel is ready to go deep into Iran if it feels like there is an imminent threat. Iran strongly disagreed with the attacks and threatened more actions that would have a negative impact on international relations and raise security concerns. Actions involving the UN Security Council, which met in an emergency session to talk about the situation that was happening combining ballistic and hypersonic missiles. Iran fired a first-of-its-kind direct missile attack on Israeli territory on October 1. Iranian officials said that 90% of their missile launches were successful, which shows how accurate and advanced their technology is. Irgun's missile strike was Iran's first major military action in the ongoing conflict. In response, both countries showed their military strength and readiness for a long-term battle. After Israel attacked Iranian military bases in Tayin Kashtan and Ilam with missiles on October 26, Iran's defense minister Aziz Nasserzadeh said that missile production and other defense operations were not affected. No problems with equipment were reported by Nasserzadeh, and work on making missiles and other weapons continued uninterrupted. According to Iranian officials, they will keep taking action to defend themselves if more attacks happen. Military leaders like Brigadier General Mohammad Reza Nagdi and President Pezeshkian have both warned of deadly attacks if Israel starts fighting again. According to IDF Chief of Staff Heri Halvi, Israel has strategically held back on some targeted sites. This suggests that Israel could launch a stronger military reaction using advanced tactics that have not been used before. The strategic pause shows that both countries are aware of how dangerous it would be to escalate things even more in a tense situation. According to a story from Axios, Iran plans to respond to the Israeli attack from outside of Iran. India may be planning an attack from Iraq in reaction to a recent airstrike by Israel, according to reports. Iranian officials in Israel say that they might start this attack, which could include many drones and ballistic missiles, from Iraq instead of Iran itself before the US presidential election on November 5. Iranian officials may want to lower the chance of Israeli counterattacks on important targets inside Iran's borders. Axios concerns have been raised about an impending attack, but an American official speaking to Axios said that it was still unclear if Tehran had finalized plans for an attack. If Iran launches a retaliatory strike against Israel before the US presidential election on November 5, 2024, it could have a wide range of effects on US politics, foreign policy, economic stability, and overall security in the Middle East. A direct military conflict between Iran and Israel could focus a lot of attention on national security issues in the United States, possibly making it a central issue in the last few days of the election. In the past, crises in international security have swayed voters toward candidates who support strong defense policies because they place immediate safety and stability concerns ahead of a clear threat to Israel. Many voters may highly support Ali, which could make the case for a more proactive foreign policy stance stronger in this election. In his campaign for president, Donald Trump, the Republican nominee, has taken a tough stance on Iran, calling for more bold policies and even bringing up the idea of military action against what he sees as hostile Iranian behavior. His posture emphasizes short-term punishments and defensive steps that might appeal to voters who see strength as a foreign policy deterrent. Opposite, Democratic candidate Kamala Harris has pushed for a strategy based on diplomatic engagement, warning against escalation, and trying to deal with Iran's actions through multilateral talks and economic penalties. Voters may choose to support the candidate they think will best protect our interests and the safety of allied nations if Iran launches an attack. This could tip the scales toward more aggressive policies if public opinion leans toward taking action right away. An Iranian attack on Israel could put more pressure on the US government to support its ally militarily, which could lead to the US being drawn into another conflict in the Middle East. This could have complicated effects on the US military strategy, which is already overloaded with commitments around the world. US participation in specific issues could also lead to bigger problems. During regional hostilities involving Iranian-backed militias in Iraq, Hezbollah in Lebanon, and other non-state actors that might support Iran's position, a long-lasting conflict would require a lot of resources and could make it harder for us to protect our strategic interests in other places, like Asia and Europe. Because of worries about supply disruptions, any worsening of the war in the Middle East, especially involving Iran, usually has an effect on the world's oil markets. Significant portions of the world's oil supply flow through the Strait of Hormuz, which is controlled by Iran. If Iran restricts this passage or if investors expect disruptions, oil prices could spike, driving up fuel costs around the world for the US. This could result in higher gas prices, higher transportation and production costs, and broader inflationary pressures. Economic uncertainty could then affect how people feel about voting, especially those who are sensitive to increasing living costs. Could put more pressure on the current administration and help candidates who put stability in the home economy first. Pre-election Iranian retaliation against Israel could have a big effect on our foreign and internal policy landscapes. Regarding politics, it might sway voters, potentially helping candidates with strong foreign policy positions. A focus on security and defense could throw peace talks off, get the US more involved in the Middle East, and make it harder to get along with other global powers. A conflict-related rise in oil prices could have an effect on both internal inflation and, by extension, voter attitudes. Thank you so much for watching this video. If our content spoke to you or inspired you, please show your support by liking it and subscribing to stay linked with our community.